Everybody okay? Thank you for attending my session. I hope you'll find it useful. Before I start, let me just introduce myself. My name is Stefan. I'm Dutch. I live in the UK and run a small company called iCompute. And we've undertaken an interesting project, and it's all about rescuing a project that went a bit pear-shaped. And that's what I would like to talk to you about today, on this afternoon. I have no time on my... can you see the time here? Okay. Yes, it's about rescuing a website, migration, and a red chicken. That may sound a bit strange. The red chicken, I'll give you that now, is to do with the CRM that we've chosen. It's RedHen CRM. Has anybody ever used RedHen CRM or heard of it? Yeah?
I've heard it.
You've heard of it? Okay. I'll show you a little bit of it later, and I'll talk about it. Okay, right. Let's start. Okay, how many site builders are there in the room? Yay, site builders. Excellent. All using Drupal. Site builders, okay, great, nice amount. Any themers or front-end people, purely back-end? Yeah, okay, great, yeah. Okay, fantastic. Right, to the rescue, that's what it says. Okay, what is a rescue project? Well, in our case, let me just explain a little bit about the project, what we're talking about. This is to do with a website for fishing in the southwest of England, and people can list their fisheries there and advertise their fishery or their accommodation and things like that. There is more to it, but that's in a nutshell what it's all about. The rescue part of this project is that the company that started building it, they unfortunately had to close down, which meant that my client had a problem because they paid for a website that was what looked like 75% finished. Well, let's say 80% finished, the 80-20. So they had their old Drupal 6 site and a 80% finished Drupal 7 site with problems. Okay, why take on such a project? Well, that's a good question. Has anybody ever done such a thing? Take on a project that was half finished or less than half finished or something like that? Yeah? What's your experience with it? Pardon? Start from scratch again. Yeah?
Very early codes, no documentation at all.
Yeah?
Very bad. I had to start over again.
Right, okay. I'm really pleased to hear that. Because that's sort of what we came across. Right. Why take on such a project? Well, I was approached by the client, and I thought, okay, let's see if we can help them out. So we set out to rescue it, to help them out, to finish the project, and then ideally get paid as well. Right. So where do you start? I'm not sure what your experience is. Please shout. But the way it worked in this case, we were a little bit lucky, I think, because even though the previous company stopped trading, they gave us all the files and the database, everything, all the databases, which was good. But as you say, documentation wasn't quite there. So we had to dig deep into how they built it and things like that, which was fun. But yeah, that's sort of where we started. We got all the files, the databases, put it together on our local or on our development environment, and started digging into it to see what we can find. Okay, now I'm only a small company, but I like working with other people, Drupal people. So what I did is I managed to put a team together of 3 people. We worked remotely on this. And the nice thing about our line of work is that you can do that. It doesn't really matter where you are. With this project, we our little team, we all lived in the same sort of area, so we didn't have time zone differences or things like that. But that worked okay. So we had one of my co-workers, he's the person in charge of the migration, and another chap who did DevOps and a little bit of front end, and me to do project management and site building, the other way around. Okay, so I think with every, if you take on such a thing, you need to obviously get the people together. Has anybody had the same experience, or when you've taken on a project, is it like a one-man job, or have you managed to pull resources in, skills in, or had to do that? Yeah.
So, in my case, it was more or less like the first step, running the hacker module.
Right.
Check if the core is overridden, and if it's really overridden, then I say goodbye. I will not. I will not work.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Project.
That's a really good one.
That once, and I will never ever do that again.
No. Okay. Yeah. Don't hack core. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Okay. Drupal 8 with a question mark. Why is Drupal 8 there? Not because it's about to be released, but in the light of this, I mean, we were working on the Drupal 6 site, migrating it to Drupal 7. With Drupal 8, Sven did a presentation yesterday about the Migrate API for Drupal 8. That, I guess a lot of people or clients will need their websites migrated from 6 to 8 or 7 to 8. So fun times ahead. Okay, what did we have to do with this? There were a couple of requirements that I've listed here. We had a custom third-party API integration to build. There's quite a bit of geolocation and mapping that is involved, and I think Paul, you know if you had a bit about mapping. We had to do Mailchimp integration and node contact forms. Now the third-party API integration, as I mentioned, it's a fishing website, and fishermen, they like to know what the weather is and of a place to where they want to fish, and also see the river levels. That's quite important because they can then gauge where or whether or not they want to go somewhere or to another fishery. Now, in the UK, there is an organisation called Shoothill, and they have, the Environment Agency. They have river station monitoring, or river stations as they are called, and they monitor river levels and then send it to the central database. Another company has provided an API, built an API for that, and we hook into that and then get the river levels into the website. I'll show you an image of that in a minute. Geolocation and mapping, yes, I'll explain that in a minute as well, but basically we have directory, it's a big directory, we had directory listings, and we have adverts. They all have addresses or coordinates, and they all had to be geolocated and mapped. And that was a little bit tricky because the original website, they did use geolocation, but it was more of a manual thing, mapping them on the map without coordinates. It was a bit strange. Well, not strange, but that's just the way it was. Mailchimp integration, has anybody ever done Mailchimp integration? Yay. Have you found it okay? Yeah? It's a pretty robust module. I mean, we use the Mailchimp module, it's pretty robust. What we had to do as well, or what we were asked to do, is to create node contact forms, and that means that if you have, say, an advert or a free listing as it's called in this project, but let's stick with adverts, you see the information in the adverts, images, the map, and a form at the bottom. I'll show you that in a minute. And the form, what needed to happen is people could fill in a contact form and an email would be sent to that particular, the email address that was associated with the advert. Now that sounds fairly straightforward. I thought it was going to be very straightforward. It turned out to be, I think we did 3 attempts. The first one was with web form, and because I thought, okay, you can enable web forms on Node nowadays, and that's quite useful. But we also had the migration to do, and found out that it wasn't that easy. So then we came across web form template, and thought, wow, this is it. So set it all up, and it sort of worked. But web form template, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's pretty nifty. But after doing the migration and integrating it all in the test environment, we noticed that every single node, and we had quite a few, there was a separate web form template or web form created for it, which is not really manageable. And so we looked for something else, and we came at what did we end up? Entity form. An entity form did just what we wanted it to do. I mean, entity form is one, and then rules on top of it to do all the messaging. And we used Mandrill for the Mandrill API to send the messages and get less spam and things like that. Is that okay? Anybody any questions? Please feel free to ask or raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, we also had a couple more requirements. The client had a custom CRM that they built years ago, which was which was integrated in the Drupal 6 site, but they wanted to go from the Drupal 6 database and the separate custom CRM database into one database for the easier to manage and things like that. Now, the previous company had set up Civi CRM. Anybody ever used Civi CRM? Any Civi CRM experts in the room? Yeah, okay. Well, I used it a couple of years ago, and even though it's very powerful, very, very powerful, for this use case, we found it too complex. The previous company also had trouble migrating the data into Civi CRM, so we decided to look for an alternative. There are several pretty good CRMs for Drupal out there. Obviously, Civi CRM is one of them. There is Open CRM, CRM Core, or Core CRM. Does it ring a bell with anybody? Okay. And there's RedHen. There's a red chicken. And that's what we started using because we found it easy to integrate with Drupal. I mean, it integrates with Drupal. And it's just one interface, and you can see it's basic what you get out of the box, but it works. Okay, SEO. It also had to have SEO. Well, what website doesn't nowadays? And the idea was to for it to make it easy to use, or simple to use. Right. Now, the budget. The budget was a bit of a challenge because, as I said, the website looked 80% finished, which meant that the website budget was also 80% gone. Now, luckily, we managed to spec out the project or the work that needed doing, and managed to get a little bit extra budget in the hope that we could that would be enough to finish it. Estimation is also an important part of this, and I'll get to that later. But it's tricky what I did in terms of budgeting, and we're talking about a small budget here, but I allowed for a little bit extra because I had a feeling that the migration would take a long, long time, and that's what it did. Are there any people here that have done migrations? Yeah? What do you think? Easy? Easy peasy? 2-minute job?
It's never easy.
It's never easy, is it? Yeah. Yep. Okay, yes. As I said, we had a distributed team, obviously in the same area, but that doesn't really matter. Now, from you people in the room here, are there any freelancers, or do you all work in companies? Any people working for their own? Yeah, great, fantastic. Yeah, so we had a small team of 3, and that worked really well. So I'd like to share with you a couple of the things that we used, the tools. Quite important if you're working with people who don't live or don't work in the same office are communication tools. Just move the mouse away. There we go. Yeah, I hate to say it, but we used Skype quite a lot. Only for, we didn't use the video, that's quite scary at times. Has anybody ever used any of the Atlassian tools, HipChat or Jira? Yeah? Yeah, I've used HipChat as well, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's all super integrated and things like that. Because we didn't have the Atlassian suite of tools, being a small business, we looked for other solutions and found Telegram. I use Telegram. Does everybody know what Telegram is? Okay. Yeah, great. Well, Telegram is an open source and secure communication tool, cross-platform, and it's great because several reasons. You can obviously use it to chat with your friends, family, or you can set up a group, and this is what we did for the team, and all the messages similar to HipChat get sent in the group. The nice thing about Telegram as well is that you can have audio messages in there. You can check files, anything up to 1.5 gigabytes per file in there. It's all secure. It's brilliant. And we used Tuleap. Now these are obviously the communication tools as I've named it, and a bit of the soft things about the whole project, but it's quite important, I think. Okay, anybody ever used Jira, or has anybody heard of Tuleap? Yeah? Okay. Excellent. Now, Tuleap is a tool. It's a software tool. I'll explain a little bit about it. And it's an application lifecycle management tool. I'm quite excited about it because at the start of the project, we thought of using or trying out software that we could use to work collaboratively in an agile way. And after a bit of searching, I came across Tuleap. It's made by a French company, and it's 100% free. And it's great. I'll show you a few screenshots of it in a minute. We use Git. Well, Tuleap has Git integrated, which was nice because we can then have all the commits, and we can see them in Tuleap all together, and it was brilliant. We didn't have to use another separate system, so basically we had one server, did the project management or the Agile management, and then the Git repositories are there as well. And as I said before, it's 100% open source. Now, is this coming across okay? Yeah, this is just a screenshot of how Tuleap works, or at least how we've used it. What you see here, these are all the tasks that we have defined, and stories hooked into it, and the status. The category that we set up, you can create. It's so flexible, the software. It's really good. You can create your own categories, or fields in a jiffy, really. And well, it's similar to any task-based tool, I guess. Anybody any questions on this? Is that visible? Okay. Now, who doesn't like a nice card wall? Tuleap, of course, has one. You can set one up, and you can create separate columns for that, which we did. We added, for example, the internal review one, client review, and you can just move things about in a really, really easy way. Now, bearing in mind I'm a site builder, I do like my graphs, and Tuleap provides that as well. This shows you, I can't really see them on my screen, but yeah, it shows you different graphs. They're all customizable. You can have bar charts and pie charts and everything. And this is really good. The client appreciated this as well because it gives a really quick overview of where we are with the project. And it helped us as well to figure out how we were doing. Okay. This is another view. I'll go through this quickly. And this is a view of different graphs. You have stories, tasks. We had bugs, a bug tracker. You can all put them into one view and quickly get an overview of how you're doing with, or what the project is doing. Okay. Now, this is way too small on my screen, and I'm sure it's small as well, but this is a Gantt chart, which is quite useful because it lists all the tasks and obviously the timeline where you are with it. Okay, I mentioned about the Git just a minute ago. This is the interface. It's compared to the Atlassian tools, it might not be as slick, but it works really well for us because we could just quickly see what was going on, who had committed what, when, and what had happened. Okay. Does everybody here use a version control system or Git? Yeah, most of it. Yeah, great, fantastic. Okay, now the development tools. Maybe it will get a little bit more interesting now. We use VLAD, PHP. Well, I use PHP Storm and MySQL Workbench. Everybody heard of VLAD for local development? Yeah. Okay. For people that haven't, VLAD is a Vagrant, LAMP stack, or Ansible and Drupal package in one. So if you install VLAD on your local machine, you get everything out of the box, and it works. It's really, really good. So we use that and then push our changes up to the Tuleap Git server, and that went well. PHP Storm, well, I mean, I use PHP Storm as an IDE. There are other ones, also a few open source ones available, but being a site builder and not a coder myself, I really like PHP Storm because it tells me when I made a mistake and actually suggests how to fix it, which is useful. MySQL Workbench is quite useful. Does anybody know MySQL Workbench? It's nice because that's a tool that allows you to, you can connect to your database with it, to your MySQL database, and it gives you a UI. I'll get to it in a minute. This is VLAD. Look it up, Drupal.org, project VLAD. That shows you what it does, made by Philip Norton, and Dan Bahia is now also involved. And it's great, it's really good. Please do look it up if you have if you're not using it yet. This is a screenshot of PHP Storm. And this is MySQL Workbench, so instead of just typing out and remembering all the MySQL commands, you can get a really quick and easy overview of your database and perform queries on it, which is good. And the way we did it in the local environment is we had our VLAD box, and then we had an SSH tunnel into the database from the workstation, and that's, you can set this up in MySQL Workbench, because when you're running your VLAD instance, obviously you need to find, you can go into the CLI and then use connect to your MySQL database. But what we did is we set up an SSH tunnel into the VLAD box. Basically, it's all local, but into the VLAD box, and that allowed us to use MySQL Workbench, which is good, especially for people like me. Okay, some of the Drupal tools that we used is Drush. That's, I think, one of the most used tools that we did. It was really good because Migrate integrates with it. Because we had to migrate to Drupal 6 to Drupal 7 site, we used Migrate Drupal to Drupal, and obviously Migrate, because it belongs to Migrate Drupal to Drupal, and we set up a makefile which wasn't in place, so we could easily rebuild the website or build it onto another machine just to test. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, now the Migrate module, I think known by the majority of people here. And the Drupal to Drupal data migration module. Excuse me. I have to say they work really, really well. Okay, so what did we have to do in terms of migration? Obviously we had to migrate Drupal to Drupal, and we had to migrate the custom CRM to RedHen CRM. Why is text format mappings in here? If you've ever done migrations with content types, which is very likely, then you have to deal with your text formats, and that can be quite a challenge sometimes, especially if you have custom text formats on your, say, source environment, which we had, and that caused a bit of issues because we had HTML markup in the migrated content on the site, which is obviously not good, and manually changing them is not an option. Just to give you an idea what we were working with, is we had nearly 400 adverts, nearly 900 free listings, and 245 editorials, which are sort of blog entries. They may not seem a lot, but it was enough for us. In terms of the CRM environment, we had over 3,000 customer records, nearly 5,000 contacts, and nearly 3,000 notes. And that was fun. Because obviously the migrate scripts had to be created to accommodate all of that. So if, for people in the room here, if you look at these numbers, does that, how do you feel? Is that like a small site or regular site, big site? That's not a big site, but yeah, small, okay. Okay, a little bit about the river levels API integration. So, as I mentioned earlier, the environment agency has all the stations. They send the information to their systems, and then this third party created an API, and we set up the connection to that. Now, this is a map of the part of the finished bit. So what we have here is all the different river levels. I mean, I'm not a fisherman myself. Are there any fishermen in the room here? No? Okay. But basically, yes, you can have all the stations are geolocated by obviously latitude, longitude. You can see the level, obviously the place, the name of it, when the last sample was taken, and there's a field for river name, river county, which means that over time, I'll show you that in a minute, the stations can be tagged taxonomy tags by river name and county, which means that eventually you can show all the river stations per county or the river stations per river, so you can follow a river along and see all the river stations. And by our knowledge, that functionality hasn't been done before, so that's quite useful. We're using Leaflet. Looked at open layers first. In the end, we chose to go with Leaflet. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it works. It's great. This is the nice and big up there. This is the interface that we set up. We're using views bulk operations, and here you can see that this, for example, Angarack, the river station Angarack is tagged with the river county. And yeah, this can be done in bulk. You can find out where the river station is, and then eventually this will be all populated and usable in the view or in the page. You can do a search, like I said, you can do bulk operations. Okay, a little bit on geolocation and mapping. As I just mentioned, we chose to use Leaflet. Anybody use Leaflet? Leaflet mapping? No? Yeah? Okay. Leaflet more maps. I don't know if this comes across, but the map itself is not your standard Google Maps. It's a different map, and the Leaflet More Maps module allows you to choose I don't know, 15 or so different map tile providers. It's really useful. Yes, IP geolocation and maps. We had to, as I mentioned earlier, we had to look at all the, say, free listings and adverts, and then geolocate them. We used Geocoder, the Geocoder module for that. Who here has done anything with Geocoder or geocoding? Yeah? Great. Right. Has anybody ever come across geocoding lots and lots of records or nodes, and the Google API bombs out over query limit? Yeah? Because you're only allowed to do 2,500 per 24 hours?
Like that.
Yeah. Pardon?
With migrating.
Yes.
Migrating old records to new database and then geolocating.
Yeah. No, that's exactly the thing that we did as well, which was fun because we were looking at the migration if that was working okay, and it was working okay, and then we looked in the log and noticed there were loads and loads of errors. The Google API over query limit, and I thought, that's okay, it will sort itself out. Well, it didn't. Because obviously you hit the limit of 2,500 requests, and that's it. Then you have to wait. So that caused us a little bit of a headache because even though the migration was working fine, the actual geolocation wasn't working, which meant that we couldn't really have any maps or get any maps on the site. So, after looking through the issue queue and comments on the Geocoder module, I came across the Geocoder backfill Drush feature. And this, for anybody that does anything with geocoding, that is a lifesaver. Because what it does, I think there are some other ways that you can do this, but what this does, the Geocoder backfill Drush command allows you to, after, say, you've done your migration, which is what we did, allows you to say, okay, geocode, I don't know, say 100 or 200 or 500 items from the CLI, and you can force it, so even if it already has an address, which in our case it was, and sometimes it also had a latitude and longitude, but still it wouldn't, the geocoding itself hadn't really worked. So the geocoder backfill command was great because that you trigger it and it does it. It takes a little while, but it was great. We had to patch the geocoder module for that to be available, but once that was done, it worked a treat. Yeah, leaflet, here we go. Yes, I wanted to use open layers to start with, but in the end we went for leaflet. Now, the IP geolocation, anybody who does with something or needs to do something on a website with mapping, do have a look at obviously leaflet and open layers, but also the IP geolocation views and maps module. If you haven't heard of it, but are doing something with mapping, I would recommend to have a look at that, because it's really, really powerful. It's a very well built module, and being a site builder, to me this was great. I used it before, and we're using it again. We use it again in this project. It has so many options in it. It's really, really flexible. Anybody heard of this, by the way? The geolocation? No? Yeah, like I said, if you're into mapping, please have a look. It's it does an awful lot out of the box. Yeah, just an image here, screenshots of locations after obviously fixing the geolocation with the backfill command. There are more, but this is an example of what is called free listings. So you can see them on the map. They are color coded. You can't see them on the screenshot, but there is an exposed taxonomy filter, so you can filter by county. By fishery type, either coarse fishery or sea fishing. For example, the light blue ones are sea, and the one that's popped up here is still water trout. And yeah, again, we're using the Thunder Forest tiles, the map tiles, and they work okay. Email communication. How are we doing for time? 10 minutes? Okay, great. Email communication, as I mentioned before, we had to integrate Mailchimp. What we've done is Mailchimp, website visitors have to be able to sign up to a Mailchimp newsletter. That's fairly straightforward, because the Mailchimp module gives you a block, and you can just put it on the website and that's it. Connect it to your Mailchimp list, and it works. The thing we also did is, or had to do, is for the contacts in the CRM to be able to sign up to Mailchimp as well. Because we used RedHen, that was quite useful, because we could leverage the Mailchimp field into a contact, and then use Migrate to subscribe. Well, it wasn't that easy as I'm saying it, but we used in Migrate. A check was done if a contact was subscribed to Mailchimp. If it wasn't, it subscribed it. So that worked really well. And as I mentioned earlier, we had the entity form, which was great. I think there's an example here. This is for, say, website visitors, if they look at either an advert or a directory listing. This bit here is the entity form. It's very straightforward, it's just 2 fields. And this is the Mailchimp newsletter integration, just 1 button. And we added the capture. And that's it. I mean, it's the way I see it. It's for such a simple thing, you do have to spend a lot of time to get it to work. I don't know what your experience is with this is, but it worked. RedHen. If you go to Drupal project/RedHen, you can have a play with it. I think it's also on simplytest.me. Yes, it is actually. That's really useful. Give it a go. See what it does out of the box. Okay. Yeah, the other thing we had to do is obviously SEO. We used the meta tag module and configured it so it would see or pull in all the custom fields that we had and fill it. Any SEO people in the room here? Okay. Well, if you need to build a site, do look at the meta tag module. It's really good, robust. It works. To test things, you can use, for example, the Google structured data tool. And another thing that has just come out is Yoast SEO. It's from a Dutch company, and they do WordPress. They have this as a WordPress module, but they've recently, I think only a couple of months ago, created the Yoast SEO module for Drupal. And this is it. And I'm not sure if I have a screenshot of. You can see that, I think. No, that's a shame. But this is what happens is when you enable it, you can enable it on your content types, and it shows up in the edit mode. And what it does, it analyzes your content. So if you, it analyzes your body text and it does real-time SEO analysis on it. And you can provide keywords, and it will then reanalyze your content based on the keywords that you've done, and that's really useful because for our clients that was very important to have good SEO to be found when anybody searches for something in the Southwest. Okay. Yeah, RedHen again. Look it up. Give it a spin. And I think that's it. Any questions? Please? Yes?
After you did, will you do it again next time?
Ah, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, I would do it again. But what I wouldn't do is or what I would do is start from scratch, and I think people said this to start with. Definitely start from scratch, because we found that even though, say, the website looked 80% finished, in actual fact it wasn't. So we had to, not reverse engineer a lot of things, but we had to spend a lot of time to actually figure out what was done. And initially we thought, okay, the theming is all done, so we can use it. As it turned out, we couldn't really use it. For example, the say node layout pages, they were really, say hard-coded, which there's nothing wrong with it. But we needed some more flexibility, so we got rid of that, used panels or Panelizer with responsive layouts and features, and that was great because it allowed us to be a lot more flexible in content layout without having to theme or hard code anything in the theme. So yes, I would take on another rescue project, but definitely start from scratch. Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, you can find me on Twitter or email, Hooft.io, or my email. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody.